the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last week, strategy was the name of the game. After one of the best races of the season, Josue Tellez pulled off the gamble of the year so far, holding off the pack and winning at Charlotte on old tires. Then on Wednesday, he pulled off that same feat in the Truck Series at Dover to become the sixth winner in 6 races in that championship. With the Precision Racing League at Pocono tonight, strategy could become the focus yet again. Who will take home victory at the Tricky Triangle? We're about to see live on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual Pocono Raceway in Long Pond, Pennsylvania for the 6th race of the Precision Racing League Cup Series season, sponsored by Diecast Kings. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is NASCAR iRacing World Championship Series driver Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. As we get all set to go for tonight's action, let's take a look at your GSRC lap guide for the best way around Pocono Raceway.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Brian Yazek. This is the GSRC Chevrolet SS and this is Charlotte Motor Speedway. Fun little 1.5 mile oval, legendary, and does not need an introduction if you're... Hello everyone and welcome to the Global Sim Racing Channel. I'm Brian Yazek. This is the Pocono Raceway and this is the GSRC Chevrolet SS. Pocono is known as the Tricky Triangle and it sure is a tricky track to try to master. So with that being said, here we come off of turn 3, no turn 4 here at Pocono. Down the long front stretch, about wide enough for 7 or 8 cars. I don't know if you'll see that in the race today, but it very well could happen. Down into turn 1, ease it in there just a little bit. You're going to want to find that seam right there on the track and kind of try to hook it between the tires straight off of the throttle. You actually also might see guys shift off of the corner as well to try to get just a little extra oomph off of the corner. Turn 2, setting it up for your entry. Back down, it's a fast sweeping left-hander. Can't get back into the gas too quick or the car will get loose just like it did right there for me. Now down into turn 3. The turn that feels like it never ends. This is where you're probably going to see a lot of guys downshift to get down here to this rumble strip patch right there, straight off of the corner, a little bit of wheel spin, right up to the wall, grab 4th gear, and down the front stretch. Now, Pocono is modeled after 3 tracks that make up its 3 corners. So turn 1 right here is based off of the old Trenton Raceway in Trenton, New Jersey. You also might see guys run right through here As the tires kind of wear out, try to get a straighter shot off of turn 1 down the Long Pond straightaway. Turn 2 has a lot of similarities to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in all of its corners. It's a very fast left-hander, with not a whole lot of banking, and it can really throw you for a loop because you have to watch the tire spin off of that. It's also known as the tunnel turn because the tunnel to the inside of the track runs right underneath that. Turn 3 based off of Milwaukee, so it's a long, sweeping left-hander. Feels like it's never going to quite get over with. You also might see guys run up in that gray strip of pavement right there. But down the front stretch once more, try to hold off everybody trying to race you 4, 5, 6, and 7 wide, and that will complete your lap guide around the Pocono Raceway. I'm Brian Yazik. This was the GSRC Chevrolet SS.
That was a look at your GSRC lap guide. Now let's bring in my broadcast partner for tonight, Christian Challoner, as we get ready for racing from Pocono Raceway. Should be an interesting one at this 2.5 mile circuit here, Christian.
Yeah, definitely. We saw a really interesting race last week at Charlotte. Probably one of the best races we've covered in this series. But tonight, completely different challenge. 2.5 mile track, 3 turns, the triangle. Should be an interesting one, and I think definitely restarts we'll see a lot of action. And we're going to be doing 45 laps tonight.
Yeah, each corner at this track, too, is different, Christian, where you have to attack them in different ways. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. We'll have a lot to discuss about this racetrack, and as these competitors continue to practice, I'd like to remind you that this series is sponsored by Diecast Kings. Shop Diecast Kings, your home of the best selection of NHRA and NASCAR diecast cars at diecastkings.com. Once again, diecastkings.com. You can also find them on Facebook at facebook.com/diecastking. Let's take a look at the championship standings entering tonight's round. Just one driver has more than one victory, Richard Regan Jr. He's on top of the standings entering this evening, with James O'Brien in the second position, 23 points back. Brandon Magaleski comes into tonight's third, with Corey Silva and Josh Cawley rounding out the top 5 in the driver's standings. In the team standings, it's Skidmark Motorsports having a stellar campaign with 7 total top 10s entering tonight's racing action, with Whataback Road Trip Racing 12 points back in second. Primetime Racing, Pilot Performance Groups, and Lemoyne Motorsport round out the top 5 in the team standings. And tonight's round going to be interesting as we get ready for the second half of the season, Christian. Let's take a look at the race details.
Yeah, so round 6 of 10 tonight. Round 5 obviously last week at Charlotte. And into the second half of the season tonight, it's going to be 45 laps or 60 minutes. Now, with how long yellow flag periods can last at this track, it's not inconceivable we could run into that 60-minute time limit, so we've got to watch out for that. Fixed setup as always with no fast repair and 24 incident limit.
It's going to be interesting to see if we can get all 45 laps in. It's going to be interesting with strategy as well in terms of fuel. We'll get to that point in a second. I want to take a look at the track conditions for tonight, as it is pretty hot on the surface this evening. 117 degrees Fahrenheit is the track temp. 82 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp. Humidity at 48% tonight, Christian. What does that mean to you as a driver?
Well, this track historically kind of tends to destroy tires, especially with hot track temperatures. So I think what we're going to see is we'll start off pretty quickly, but then we'll drop off quite substantially. So anytime I think we see any yellows, we're going to see a lot of people come down for tires. And 117 degrees is pretty warm here. And as you mentioned a little bit before we came on air, we might see people shifting as well. So going down to third for, say, turns 1 and maybe turns 3 as well.
Yeah. Take a listen in, for example, on Thomas Morris here in practice as we go into turn. Here and shift right to third. And carry that speed all the way off in the corner. Many of these drivers will be shifting today, some of these competitors, to try and make sure they don't get too tight off the corner specifically here, Christian. And that's one of the characteristics, especially in fixed racing when it comes to Pocono, even with this package where you need to make sure you keep up the momentum.
Yeah, and you saw a really good example of that coming off of turn 1 there. You saw he was really, really tight, ended up really close to the wall, had to pull the car off it. And that's actually where we tend to see a lot of yellows coming out, because say there's a restart and somebody gets tight on the top and they have to pull the car off the wall, they tend to collect somebody on the bottom. So we got to watch out for that. And as you say, with the fixed setup, it's everybody has the same deal, but some adapt to it better than others.
Again, drivers may shift in turn 1, which is modeled after Trenton Speedway, as well as in turn 3, modeled after the Milwaukee Mile, the tunnel turn, modeled after Indianapolis Motor Speedway here at Pocono. The drivers finishing up practice. James O'Brien, the quickest in the session with a 56.207. Keith Haney, after his stellar race at Charlotte, is second on the board, with Scotty Johnson, Thomas Morris, Joshua Daniels rounding out the top 5. 21 drivers getting ready to start qualifying for tonight's event here, Christian. Of course, the Superb Owl, as it's somewhat called, is tonight, which may be a factor in terms of drivers who may take a drop week this round.
Yeah, I was seeing a little bit less in terms of numbers tonight. Like, as you said, down to 21. I believe we had over 30 for last race at Charlotte, so a little bit down on numbers, but might lead to a bit of a cleaner race, especially some cleaner restarts. And I think one driver I'm definitely going to be looking out for is Keith Haney. Obviously, we saw how good he was at Charlotte. I'm wondering if he can do the same thing here.
Very curious as well. The times amongst the top 10 separated by just 0.2 of a second in practice. These drivers have 2 laps, 5 minutes to set their best qualifying attempt on the circuit for today's round. Now, of course, last week it came down to strategy in the end to decide the winner at Charlotte. Remember, with Jose Tellez. For this round, it could be interesting too, because the fuel mileage, about a maximum of about 36 laps here at Pocono. If we get, say, an early yellow, that might open up the door for drivers to try and save Christian.
Yeah, it's definitely something you've always got to look out for at this track. It's known for it in real life as well as on here that it can go to fuel mileage, and I've been a part of a couple of those races. And like you say, if we get a yellow within, say, the first 10 laps, obviously it makes it a little bit of a tight scenario in fuel, but it's definitely doable. And I think we'll probably see drivers out there saving, because it's so close, and just even being able to do one extra lap can really make the difference.
But it's a big track too. How difficult is it to make sure you save enough fuel with it being 2.5 miles around the circuit?
Well, it's really difficult, but at the same time, you've got some areas where you can actually do a little bit more than you can at, say, other tracks. As we mentioned, obviously the shifting in turns 1 and 3, well, it runs the engine at some more RPM and burns a bit more fuel because of it. So what you can do to avoid that is to not shift. You'll lose some lap time. You can also really, really roll off the corner early into especially turn 1, and you can save quite a bit of fuel just by doing those two things.
As you can see on the left side of your screen, 5, make it 6 drivers to put in qualifying times. Daniels at 56.618 to start things off. Coley at 56.8, 57.2 for Johnson. Costello with 57.3 amongst the top 4. But with Pocono, the second lap is always the fastest lap, because if you can get a good run off of turn 3, it can set up a flyer for the second time around the circuit.
Yeah, that front stretch is so long that it's really, really crucial to get a good run off of 3. And the other thing with this track is, with it being so different in all 3 turns, and with there being a little bit more to it than, say, 1.5 miles is now in terms of lifting and so on, there's a lot more opportunity to both gain and lose time relative to the competition, and I think we're seeing that with the lap time spread so far.
The fastest driver on a first lap is James O'Brien so far. Michael Lorty, he coming across the line with a 56.5 on his second time around. Should note that there are clouds above the racetrack here, so that might become a factor in the later parts of the session. Rachel Hunt coming around the track now in the second time around. 56.7 first time, a 56.5 the second time around to the top of the board. As we look at Danny Cervantes coming around the racetrack currently in P number 8, Christian.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the cloud coming over the track drops the track temperature just a little bit, gives the track a little bit more pace. Sees James O'Brien coming to complete his second lap, runs a 56.4, so good time by him. Take the pole right now by over a 10th.
Yeah, O'Brien had a blistering lap, Christian, to start off the qualifying session. The fastest first lap out of everybody, and that in turn, I think, really helped him. Dan McLaren, for example, on his second lap, going to really have to hustle it, though, to make sure he gets that lap around. Pat Harvey, in a case where he now can only put in 1 lap because As mentioned, it takes 56 seconds or so to get around this track. Just under 40 seconds left on the board.
Yeah, and these drivers only have 5 minutes as well, so obviously pretty tight. If you do make a mistake, to go back out there and complete both the warm-up lap and the timed lap.
Looking at Josh Blade now, the slowest of the drivers so far on the board. 14th overall, 57.5 the first time around. Carrying speeds over 160 miles per hour off the corner, 164 at the line, a 57 flat. Moves him provisionally to P number 12. Richard Regan Jr. to the top of the board, though, by 4 1/1000ths of a second at the very end of the session. And McLaren with the flyer as well, just barely puts in a top 5 qualifying run. So many drivers putting in some flyers tonight here at Pocono Raceway. But it's time to decide who will take home the victory. Let's take a look at how they'll start for round number 6. Richard Regan Jr. comes home with the pole by 4 1/1000ths of a second over his teammate James O'Brien. Rachel Hunt starts in 3rd with Michael Lordy in 4th position. Dan McLaren starts in the 5th position with Joshua Daniels in the 77 machine starting at P number 6. Josh Cawley with the 6.25 in 7th. Dennis Ventes 5 1/1000 second behind on the outside of number 4. Scotty Johnson starts 9th, and Adam Zepke rounds out your top 10, Christian.
And just outside the top 10, we've got Pat Harvey in 11th, lining up alongside Charles Sumner with 12th. Josh Slade, we saw him cross the line and run a 57.027 in 13th, with Jeff Costello, the last time qualifier, in 14th. After that, a couple of notables. We had Thomas Morris, no time in 15th, with Robert Bissell Jr. in 16th. And then, next row, Paul Williams 2nd and Keith Haney in 17th and 18th. Those are definitely going to be 2 drivers to watch. Both of them elected not to qualify tonight. Followed by Chad Brown in 19th, Horacio Calhoun in 20th, Brandon Chatley in 21st, and James Duke in 22nd.
So 22 total drivers come in. James Duke just making it at the start of qualifying to roll in the 76 machine. So it's going to make it interesting here at Pocono. As mentioned, 3 different types of corners, 2.5 miles, 3 turns around the tricky triangle. At this point, what are your keys to the victory tonight at Pocono?
It's got to be down to avoiding the initial kind of mayhem that you tend to have on a restart here. We very, very frequently see 3, even 4 wide down into turn 1. We also tend to see 3 wide a lot into turn 2, and that's a scenario that very rarely ever works. It's very difficult to even go 2 wide through there, so generally when you see a 3 wide scenario, it's something you kind of don't want to be involved in. But if you're behind it and it does make it through the turn without incident, it tends to mean that the cars that did go 2 and 3 wide through there are going very, very slowly, and you have a really big run on them into turn 3.
Yeah, we'll see who can carry the most momentum off the corners to set up passes as the drivers roll their way off the pit lane. Who are some of the drivers you think we should keep an eye on here tonight? You mentioned a few of them. Starting at the back, for example. Of course, a lot of competitors with a chance here at Pocono, especially with the potential of a trick.
Yeah, we've got our normal contenders at the front. Richard Regan Jr. on the pole again, so he's definitely going to be a driver to watch, as well as Rachel Hunt in 3rd. Those 2 of those have been at the front of most of these races so far this season, so I don't think there's any reason to suspect that that will change. Obviously, we've got Keith Haney and Paul Williams both starting at the back, and both drivers that we've seen be very, very quick as well, so those are my 4 that I'm going to be really keeping an eye on.
Very curious to see how Haney can run as well myself at this point as these drivers make their way on the run from turn 1 to turn number 2 before they get the green flag today. Once again, Regan Jr., the points leader, in control of the field. O'Brien in 2nd. Hunt, Lordy with one of his best qualifying runs in the 4th position. To make things very interesting here. Should be an interesting, curious to see who can take home the victory in here, and when these drivers may elect to pit one if we get a long green flag run. That could also be key tonight.
Yeah, and that's where tire management really comes in as well, especially if we do get that long green flag run. It's not only fuel, it's also tires. It's a track where really saving the tire can pay a lot of dividends later on just because of how much momentum you can carry out onto the straights.
See who can have the quickest speeds and who can manage the tires the best tonight. Regan Jr. coming off of turn number 3. A short start box here at Pocono Raceway. Pace car is off. Green flag is up. We're racing from Pocono Raceway.
James James O'Brien didn't really quite get away so good there. Checked up the outside lane just a little bit.
They're side by side for P number 2. Rachel Hunt on the inside line, O'Brien on the outside. Now the drivers have to deal with the bumps up on that top line as some of them slide their way up towards the safer barrier.
It's the 09 and Jeff Costello almost got in the wall. He was in the bumps so bad in turn 1 there.
And that makes it so difficult to run even the middle line here at Pocono. But Regan Jr. with that good start, already up in front by 3-4 car lengths on the exit of Indianapolis. Rachel Hunt up to 3rd position. McLaren still side by side, wanting to move to 4th.
And that's the scenario they're going to want to get out of really, really quickly, because the longer they stay side by side, the more it's going to slow them down, and the more the cars behind them, as we see Josh Cully with a big run to the inside.
And that's why you want to be on the bottom, especially here with this type of setup. Coley through for P number 5. Now it's side by side for P number 6. Daniels on the bottom side. Lordy on the outside line trying to deal with the bumps. And you see that difference there. As soon as you hit that bump in the middle part of the racetrack, it forces you to lift and forces you to slow down, nearly tapping the wall, in fact, was the 994 off the corner.
And it's so excruciating when you feel that, where the car's just pushing out to the wall and there's nothing you can do other than just try and slow it down even more, but it means you're going to carry no speed off the corner, and then you're going to be really vulnerable down the straight into 2.
Here's the thing when it comes into the run to Indianapolis, though, in that tunnel turn, a lot of drivers like to give some leeway, as in if they know a driver around them has the faster run, 9 times out of 10, you'll see the driver give them the spot and think big picture, because if you stay side by side for too long, that's a difference of 4 to 5 tenths of side drafting off the corner alone.
Yeah, this is a track where running 2x2 really, really slows you down, so you want to avoid it as much as possible. And that goes for both the guy passing and the car being passed. Like you say, if you know that you're not as fast as the car that's trying to pass you, then you're better off not fighting it, because you'll lose connection to the cars ahead of you if you do.
O'Brien looking really quick, was about a tenth faster last time by. Does have the draft, however, to have to deal with, as trying to be a little more cautious is O'Brien through the corner entries at the moment. Regan Jr. trying to send it a little bit deeper in that 46 machine. So this is going to get curious to see how these two drivers manage their tires up towards the front. Regan Jr. with the better run through turn 3 that time.
Yeah, we've seen Regan Jr. likes to get out into the lead and then kind of sit there and control the race from that point. But as we saw at Charlotte, if it goes to a very long run, his desire to be out in the lead can come back to hurt him, especially against cars that have saved tire and maybe ran in the middle of the pack for most of the run.
That leads to the curious question. Say if you're Josh Coley, do you want to stay behind the cars for a little bit, save a little bit of tires and fuel, or do you try and push yourself forward to the grid like you're seeing McLaren trying to on Hunt?
I think this kind of comes down to the scenarios in. Like right now, he's seeing this side by side, and if that continues on with cars up ahead of him as he gets to the inside of Rachel Hunt going into turn 3 here, he's obviously making the play to get forwards as soon as he can.
Yeah, seeing an opportunity, took it on the bottom side. Coley up to 4th, and this is one of Coley's best runs this season. We've seen him fight his claw his way from the back of the field a few times in that number 3 machine. But looking very sporty tonight. Was the fastest car last time by overall in the race. This time by just a little bit off the leaders. As side-by-side O'Brien takes it over. Regan Jr. gives up the spot.
Yeah, that looked very, very easy for James O'Brien there. Richard really didn't fight him at all going into turn 1. In fact, if anything, it looked like he facilitated the pass.
It almost feels like Regan Jr. knew that O'Brien was quicker after a couple laps and thought, you know what, may as well think big picture, not fight and burn up the tires. May as well let O'Brien go and try and get into a good rhythm. One thing to think about too, McLaren is closing in fast.
And this is something that you kind of have to just sort of work with, especially if you got guys who want to run as hard as possible at the start, and maybe Richard Regan doesn't want to do that. But if these guys around him want to go, well, like you saw the last lap, you can kind of let them go, but you're banking on it going to a long run and having the opportunity that you'll run them down and repass them. And with a 22-car field tonight, it looks pretty clean so far, and I think that's smart to play the long run.
Absolutely, in this type of race tonight, it's been very clean so far on lap number 6 of 45. 39 laps to go this upcoming time. Top 5, O'Brien, Regan Jr., McLaren, Coley, and Hunt. But Hunt, trying to make sure she doesn't lose positions, is currently trying to fight with Michael Lordy now for P number 5. Lordy in the 994 machine was closing in the past couple laps. McLaren looking to try and take over second, going for the late move into turn number 3, sends it on the bottom side.
You see again Richard Regan Jr. running the outside, not giving a terribly large amount of room there, but again not really fighting it on exit, but under threat now from Josh Cully.
That looked like McLaren got very tight, in fact, and nearly hit the left front fender. Cully to the inside line. All the way near the bottom striping, it's about 5-6 lanes wide here at Pocono down that front stretch. Cully using every single lane to pass by into P number 3 as Regan Jr. gives him the love tap.
And this is where Richard Regan Jr. has got to be careful with this. He can afford to let some of these cars go, but you have to stay within range, and you can't fall too far back. If he falls to, say, 4 or 5 seconds back and gets more cars in between as he pulls off the pass into the tunnel turn, looks like Cully's going to still be on his outside going into 3, though. He needs to just make sure he doesn't lose connection to those 2 leaders.
Yeah, those leaders are side by side. McLaren taking an opportunity to the inside of O'Brien, while the side-by-side continues for 3rd. Regan Jr. clear for 3rd. McLaren not able to get the run off the corner as O'Brien will lead this time by. Side-by-side still as O'Brien tries to clear him.
And this is actually exactly what Regan Jr. wants to see. Those 2 fighting in front of him. It's going to bring him back up to them without much effort on his part.
McLaren the better run along the bump. Squeezes him a touch. Near contact as McLaren takes the race lead. +4 for him on the night. And O'Brien losing momentum as he loses second as well to Regan Jr. to the inside.
You can see how costly that was for O'Brien. He was in the fight for the lead right there, and then just he was checked up off of turn 1 and immediately then under threat and passed, and now down into 3rd, looking like he might even lose that to Josh Cully on the inside into 3.
Coley looking to follow the conga line to the bottom side, able to get to the inside. But O'Brien has been really fighting on that outside line so far to carry that extra bit of momentum. Able to make it stick for the time being, and now Rachel Hunt is trying to follow that line.
And once again, we can see the 2 wide is letting the front pair now escape, and Regan Jr. looks like he really wants that lead back.
Yes, indeed, especially after that bit of a squeeze on the 2 teammates. Already door contact. O'Brien sent sideways. Cully involved. Daniels involved. First caution flag is out of the night. 3-car incident on lap number 9 of 45.
That's exactly one of the danger points that we talked about pre-race, coming off of 1. Everybody gets tight, and if you're too wide, there's not a lot of space.
It almost looked like Cully hit a bump that moved him up towards O'Brien's door, but O'Brien was trying to carry that momentum up on the middle line still and force Cully to lift. Cully didn't have that exact lift I think he was expecting.
Yeah, it just looked like Cully's car drifted up. O'Brien was really kind of trying to hold him down there to make sure he had more momentum off the corner. Just didn't look like there was any ability for Cully to turn any lower than he was. Just at that point in the corner, you're kind of along for the ride. There's not much more you can do.
And that gives significant damage to all 3 drivers involved. Left side damage to O'Brien. Both side fenders crumpled in on Cully. Daniels also smacking the wall you've seen at the tail end of that last shot. So all 3 drivers involved with significant damage now. That will take them potentially out of contention for this victory, unfortunately for them here, Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one track where damage really, really hurts you just because of how long the straightaways are. It's almost a super speedway in that sense, so you really do not want significant aero damage, and all 3 of those cars there, a lot of damage. They're definitely not going to be on the same pace they were as they were before that wreck.
This is going to make it, though, where the drivers, for the most part, can now make it on fuel if they pit this time by, which is to be expected after 9 to 10 laps. These are longer pace laps to think about. Pit strategy should note about 2 minutes apiece. So it's going to be curious to see who's going to have the best pit stops here. Remember, Regan Jr. has pit box number 1 to try and get off the lane.
Yeah, I think we'll see everybody come down here, and as you said, we're now inside that window for fuel. So I think we might even see a couple come down on the last time by just to top it off. But I think they should all be safe now.
All the drivers coming down for their 4 tires and fuel. McLaren coming in first, Regan Jr. second, Hunt, Lordy, Daniels, Johnson, Cervantes, Harvey amongst them. Zemke stays out to try and get a bonus lap led, along with Paul Williams the second to add that extra bit of fuel as well. So we'll see how they enter the pits as Regan Jr. riding the right rear a little bit of the 73 as they go into the stalls.
Yeah, running really, really close there, and I do believe Adam Zemke was scored as the leader, so that tactic did work, and he is going to get that bonus point.
By 5/1000ths of a second, Regan Jr. overran his pit box, though, by about a couple feet. Going to lose him some time in the 46 machine. Rachel Hunt, the first off the lane, though, takes over the race lead.
We saw that Regan Jr. just that little mistake on the pit entry, and the pit cone not being as close to the number 1 stall this week, so a little bit less of an advantage.
Here's the concern, though, if you're Rachel Hunt. She does have right rear damage right around the spoiler and on the back bumper. So if you're a driver right now with that type of damage, what's the concern if you're Rachel Hunt as the leader, potentially, depending on how the rest of the 3-car cycle?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's too substantial, but at the same time, obviously not what you want. Now, being the leader, you're always kind of under threat anyway when it comes to the draft. You're the car punching the hole, so it's not too unexpected to see people have big runs on you, but obviously that's going to hurt that car even more and be even more vulnerable when it comes to that draft.
Talk about big movers, though, in the pit stop sequences. Some drivers gain 2 seconds in the lane specifically. Scotty Johnson is in net P2, for example, after the pit stops. Only 41.6 seconds in the lane. Compare that to Richard Regan Jr., 44 seconds after overrunning the boxes. McLaren, 44 seconds. And Paul Williams II is staying out to try and get the lead lap, it appears. This is going to get interesting with the difference, though. Zemke does come down. Drivers behind the official iRacing pace car with a 2-to-go signal.
Yeah, as you say, some drivers with 44-second lane times, others with 41.6. It is a strangely difficult pit road. The pit road speed is a little bit higher than a lot of these drivers are used to, and pit road itself isn't really very smooth. It's quite bumpy, so stopping in those stalls is a little bit more challenging than it necessarily looks.
And curious to see how this run progresses. By the way, one of the drivers we've been keeping an eye on in Haney, he's a +5 on the race in 13th position. See how Haney can try and take advantage of this situation in the 87 machine, for example. You see him on your screen right now, currently lined up behind O'Brien, Bissaw Jr., Sumner, and Morris, for example, in the positions up in front. So Haney's been quietly moving his way through the field. That's what the Third Rock Racing sponsored machine did, though, at Charlotte. Quietly moved up to the field, became a contender at the end.
Yeah, and I was actually keeping an eye on his lap times. It didn't look like he was really pressing to get forwards, just kind of very, very slowly moving his way through. And actually, at the very beginning of the race, he was losing quite a bit of time to the leaders, so it looked like he was doing an aggressive amount of saving. Hopefully, I'm assuming that he was going to move forwards later in the run, having a lot better tires.
In some cases, I've heard of drivers, Christian, saving to the point where they might be half a second off in the short run, but gain 0.2 a lap on the long run. Yes, the math doesn't add up quite so much in terms of the short-term gains, but the long-term gains might be something Haney is thinking about here.
Yeah, I definitely think that he's going with that strategy. Like you said, we saw that at Charlotte as well. Comparatively on the short runs, he wasn't really pushing at all, but then on the long runs, he had a significant advantage, at times a 10th a lap faster than anybody else out there. And I feel like that's what his strategy was here. He was going to let everybody fight in front of him whilst he saved a lot of tire, and then was going to move forwards. Obviously now with this yellow, it's actually really, really good for him, and now everybody can get to the end, and it's a longer run than it otherwise would have been without the yellow.
Brendan Chatley is your leader because On lap number 8, coming to the start of his lap number 9, he cut his way into the pit lane, took a 22-second pit stop, and because of that decision, he goes from the back of the field to the front of it for this restart. I can't tell if that's a smart strategy or a strategy that just so happened to work out somehow.
Definitely kind of a strange move, but he has come down and has taken tires and fuel, so he's not necessarily at a disadvantage. I don't believe he's at any disadvantage, actually, so he has cycled himself to the lead. It's just a question as if he can stay up there.
I'm wondering if he heard or knew that the cars were in trouble up in front, and as soon as he found out, it's like, I'm going to duck down to the pit lane, take a gamble, and try and get in before the pit entrance closes. He might have just barely did that to get this race lead. Might have served 8 seconds or so. That's about it, and now has a chance to try and gain net track position if he can hold on to this.
Yeah, definitely a smart move. However, he's managed to achieve it, but it has cycled him to the lead.
We'll see how Chatley does here up in front of the Rescue Racing machine. We'll start on the inside. Rachel Hunt with that aero damage on the right side. Starts on the outside line. Johnson, Regan Jr., McLaren, the top 5. Green flag waves up with the stand. A slow start for Hunt. A push from Regan Jr. and Chatley comes up the block.
Yeah, Regan Jr. wasting no time at all there. Aggressively pushing Hunt, looking maybe to the inside here in a 1 as well.
Inside, Regan Jr. takes the position. Multiple drivers slide way up the track. 3, 4 wide for positions. Haney having to keep it off the bottom of cars. More drivers taking the bumps on the apron. Everyone keeps it straight, however, to keep it green, while Hunt gets the run for second.
Yeah, had a lot of moments there in 1, but everybody managed to just about survive.
Hunt able to get to second. Johnson really slipping and sliding on the bottom side of the tunnel turn. McLaren also trying to wait to get on through as Chatley tries to work the outside line in all of this for the battle for P number 3. Chatley drops to 4th as he had a bit of a bobble off the corner. Everybody trying to move up.
I think Chatley might actually be one of the few drivers out here who's maybe a little bit tight on fuel. As we said, he came down earlier than the rest.
Bit of a back off that time from McLaren. Nearly made it 3 wide. Danny Cervantes door checks. McLaren with the save. They keep it green and straight off the corner. McLaren, though, loses multiple positions.
Yeah, that looked like Cervantes just wasn't aware that McLaren was still there on his inside, cut down, and really good job by McLaren not to lose that car, straighten it out. Obviously lost track position, but still in the race.
And now contact from Sumner spins McLaren out. Caution is out for the second time. Might have also got clipped by one of the skid mark machines as he bounced off the wall. McLaren with no more front clip, involved in the second caution flag of the night.
Yeah, I feel like I might have cursed him a little bit on that one, said that he survived the first incident, but then immediately roughed up again down into turn 2. Don't really think there's a lot he could have done here. Just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and Sumner was staying on that inside. I'm wondering if McLaren expected Sumner to back off or vice versa in that scenario. Jeff Costello, though, was very, very close to hitting the front part of the bumper. In fact, did make that bit of contact as he bounced off the wall right there.
Yeah, definitely picked up a good bit of right front damage there. You saw the hood just get bent up a little bit. And now we'll see it from the outside. Oh, no, maybe we won't, but definitely that 09 with some damage.
So the driver's now definitely good on fuel, for the most part now with this caution flag, but for Chatley, up inside P3 with all of that. So it's a net gain of 17 positions from the drop of the green flag with that bold call and the help of the caution flag, as all the drivers now will have to reform themselves into a double file line.
Yeah, and this is something that we do tend to see at Pocono as well. When one yellow comes out, it tends to breed more of them just because of how crazy the restarts are.
Indeed here. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more racing action of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. Live from the virtual Pocono Raceway, this is the Global SimRacing Channel. Pocono Raceway for more coverage of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. As we get all set to go for the third start of the race, the second overall restart. Coming to 26 laps to go, Richard Regan Jr. leads the race, with Rachel Hunt in second, Brendan Chatley in third, Scotty Johnson, Danny Cervantes, Josh Slade, Thomas Morris, Robert Bichon Jr., Keith Haney, and Charles Sumner inside your top 10. Christian, it's been an interesting race so far with a lot of lead changes especially, and some strategy calls. Your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely seen a lot of people trying to get out to the lead, but then at the same time, with the strategy coming in, we've seen a lot of drivers out there still trying to save some tires, and some even trying to save some fuel to get to the end. Now with the second yellow, I don't think we're going to see anybody in trouble regarding fuel. It's all going to be about tires at this point. You'd see many, if any, cars come down on this yellow, so everybody out there on pretty similar tires, only a couple of laps on them.
Every single car, we should note, inside the top 10, outside of the leader, has gained positions from their initial starting spot when we took the green flag about 30 minutes ago. +1 for Hunt, +17 for Chatley, +5 for Johnson, +3 for Cervantes, for example, inside the top 5. So drivers are moving to the grid, and drivers are all set to go to take the green flag once more. Pace car is off, Regan Jr. is off. To the loud pedals they go for the green flag again.
And top 3 with a pretty big jump over the rest of the field, but all that's going to mean is that everybody behind is going to get pulled up to them, and they're going to be right with them on a 1, and then on the exit of 1 and into the run to 2 as well.
Danny Cervantes pushing Johnson up on the quarter entry for the battle for 4th position. The 07 up in the bumps, loses a couple positions. Now is side by side for P number 7. Trouble for O'Brien in the back of the field. He bobbles around and hits the wall. That's the 14th place car. We stay green as no one else is around the 9.
Yeah, not really sure what happened with James O'Brien there. Sorry, he had a little bit of a moment, but looked like he had it gathered up, and then car just turned hard left down towards the wall.
Let's go back up towards the front where the top 5 has started to break away after this restart. Chatley still holding on to a top 5 position after that gamble. But Danny Cervantes looks to be really wanting to make some moves. A +4 for him of the night so far. And had a bit of a run off 3, but had to lift a slight touch. Josh Slade also getting a run into the corner entry of turn number 1. He sends it, licks the stamp, and goes for 4th position.
He's going to have to really park it in the middle of the corner, and we see Cervantes is going to have a big run on him into 2, already at his quarter, and he's going to be nearly nose level with him into turn 2.
Danny Cervantes right now running 58.1s after that initial start. 58 flat for Josh Slade was the fastest off that green flag. Has the faster run heading into the tunnel turn to hold on to 4th position. Cervantes backs off on the corner entry. So going to be curious again to see how these drivers take this run with 24 laps to go to see who can be the best, not just on the short run, but who's able to maintain it on the long run.
Yeah, and you saw there the top 5 had broken away until they were starting to fight for 4th, and now that slowed them down, and it's extended the pack out, but also brought everybody back into the same line.
Yeah, that's closed back in Johnson. Cervantes following along with him. Now Rachel Hunt, we should note, is in 2nd position. Despite that damage, Rachel Hunt has been looking pretty sporty so far, holding on to the top 2 position, but is losing a bit of time down the straightaway. 166, making it 170 miles an hour, but does have the help of the draft to reel in Richard Regan Jr. a bit. That's going to hurt Rachel potentially though, Christian, if she, say, gets into clean air to try and defend, as we talked about.
Yeah, and I think this strategy is only going to work for her if the cars behind continue to stay in line as they are at the moment. Brendan Chatley's not really pushed her at all since the restart, and seems quite content just running that 3rd place right now. But if he gets racy, then she's going to start losing a lot of time if they start going side by side.
Speaking of side by side, they are for 4th position, make it 5th position, check that. As Cervantes is side by side with Johnson. Johnson had the run in turn 3. Cervantes, though, sends it hard into turn 1, ducks it down to the bottom just before the bumps to be able to hold on to the top 5. Amongst the also side-by-side battles, Bichon Jr. and Lordy also battling along with Hanley for P number 8 on back at the moment. You see that just now, Hanley on board with him as he follows behind that orange 97.
Yeah, you see Haney trying to run the top side in 2 here alongside Lordy. He's going to have the run into 3.
Haney with more momentum off the corner. Able to get the position to move up into P number 9. And again, this has been a driver that's looked very efficient, especially in the long run. A +9 for the ranks tonight. 22 laps to go, still a lot of time to work with. All the drivers are fairly close inside the top 10, separated by only about 2.5 seconds on the track.
Yeah, and as we keep seeing, anytime there is a side-by-side moment, it's slowing down that pair and everybody behind's getting pulled back to them. So I think at the moment, the strategy that Haney's trying to run, where he's just kind of methodically moving through people one at a time, not really having a big fight with anybody, it's kind of working out because nobody's really getting away at this point. The only driver with any kind of separation is Regan Jr., and even then it's still only 0.7 of a second to second.
Here's the thing though, as you take a look from the gearbox of Richard Regan Jr., he's been pulling away from Rachel Hunt & Co. Last time by was 1/10 of a second quicker. The gap is up to nearly 0.6. And Regan Jr. looking efficient in doing so. Rachel Hunt, for example, though, not as good of an exit off of turn number 3. The separation in terms of times, a 56.6 for Regan. Actually, a faster time for Rachel Hunt despite that rough exit of turn number 3. So Regan Jr. is trying to run away from this grouping, and Rachel Hunt at this point is trying to counter-react that as much as she can.
And the big thing for everybody behind Regan Jr. is to not really fight each other, as we see a bit of a checkup by Josh Slade, and now Scotty Johnson all the way to the inside, might be up in a 4th by the time he comes out of turn 2.
2 by 2, heading towards the tunnel turn. Johnson inside of Slade. Morris still side by side with Cervantes. Which driver will get the run? Everyone holds each other up in the side draft. Slade with the best run out of all 4 of those cars. Moves himself up back into 4th position. Johnson clips the grass, nearly slides into Cervantes, does make contact. The 25 slides up the racetrack, keeps it off the fence as they go 3 wide off of turn number 3. Everyone scrambles as they keep it green and clean.
And this is the worst possible thing that can happen to this group, because in amongst all of that, the top 3 have completely broken away.
Yeah, that was near trouble, mind you, with that scenario, and it's forced us side by side for 5th position now. Esau Jr. a +11. Michael Lortag trying to gain some time at the moment in 6th position, but here comes Thomas Morris going for the switch back to the inside into towards the tunnel turn.
Again, it's going to delay this pack even more, although Lordy cutting straight across him there, giving him no quarter on the inside.
Lordy gains about 4 car lengths off the exit. Now Pat Harvey looks to take advantage in that blue 67. However, Morris with the better run. Both of the drivers shifting around a little bit off the corner. Morris able to carry more momentum to be able to hold on to that position. Crazy past couple laps coming to 19 laps to go for these drivers. 18 to go in the next circuit around. So these drivers, some of them not being patient. Some of them wanting to get the positions and the points before they start to separate.
Yeah, that definitely looked like a scenario where we had a bunch of guys there who all wanted to kind of ride along and just stay in single file, but then mixed in amongst that, a couple who really wanted to move, and as we saw, it created a big moment for the field right there.
Chatley, though, up to 2nd position, and able to make the pass work on Rachel Hunt. And this is the concern I had a little bit. If Rachel Hunt got some clean air and started to lose the draft, that rear-end damage might affect the straight line speed. Chatley now going to have to try and close in a 1.5 seconds up to the lead, while Rachel Hunt will soon have to play defense on Josh Slade.
Yeah, a very efficient pass there by Brendan Chatley, though. Going down into 2, the move was almost completely over by the time he got to the apex of the corner, so minimal time lost for both those cars.
Indeed, in fact, they gained another 10th on corner entry into Trenton. As you take a look at more of the battling, still looking to fight for position is Pat Harvey. And Pat Harvey, we haven't mentioned much of him, nearly making a bit of contact that time with Haney a little bit off the corner. Right now, Harvey wanting to cut his way through the field, does have a slight touch of aero damage on the right front fender. That's lifted the front hood a slight bit on that Ford Mustang.
You see Harvey there having to run the inside there and slowing both himself and Haney down just a little bit, allowing Michael Lordy to pull just about a car length on the exit of 2.
You see on board from Haney's car, still in ninth position. Looking a little bit quicker off the corner once again. As heat number 3 starting to heat up again, where it's side by side, Rachel Hunt and Josh Slade. Slade's 34 machine looking to make the pass. Hunt gives up the ghost, falls back to 4th position.
Now once again, Hunt not really fighting for it, not slowing herself down. Obviously got that little bit of damage on the car, it's probably hitting it just a touch. But at the same time, that group still with a significant gap to everybody outside of the top 5, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to be fighting those cars and bringing everybody back together.
Should note, when we started this broadcast, it was 117 degrees. Rachel Hunt a little bit dicey with the 125 degree track temp right now. That is a +8 from practice through qualifying to the race right now. And Hunt really struggling off the corner. Bichon Jr. with a massive run for...
Yeah, Hunt very, very, very close to the wall on the exit to 2 there. Allowed to run by both Slade and Bichon Jr. on her. The last lap, it's really not been looking too good for her.
Yeah, Hunt starting to really fall off again, having a bit of a charge off of turn number 1, but again, looks like Rachel Hunt a little bit tight off the corner. Still trying to fight on back. We'll see if she tries to make a move and does take a peek. Bichon Jr., though, still with the advantage into the tunnel turn. Now tries to focus on closing up the gap to P number 3's Josh Slade. So Hunt now a -2 from the drop of the green flag, and this is now a free fall at this point for Rachel Hunt. Speaking of drivers looking to fight, though, Pat Harvey still having a fight, trying to go and catch up to P number 7.
Yeah, this group in here of Harvey, Haney, Sumner, and Lordy have been fighting for the past couple of laps. Michael Lordy really not wanting to give up this position for 7th.
Now, right now, the gap between 7th and 6th position, for example, is nearly a full second. They were near bumper to bumper at one point, Morris and Lordy, between some of the battles. But looks like that 994 just able to hold on. Should note, though, that car that's leading this group of drivers does have barrel damage. As Thomas Morris making a move for 5th position just up the road, we should note. Hunt just giving up the position. And now that opens up the door for this battle of cars that we just followed along with.
Yeah, Hunt really looking in trouble at this point as we see Haney going to the inside of Pat Harvey into 3.
We'll have Rachel Hunt also to potentially gain position as Haney looked like trying to downshift a bit. Got a little bit free. Had to back off the gas and hold on to that yellow line. That opens up the run for Charles Sumner to his right. Sumner, though, boxed in this battle as Johnson also comes in on the outside.
Yeah, and this is really dangerous for Haney if he gets stuck on the bottom. But it looks like Sumner's gone really high into 1. Not going to have any run on him on the exit at all.
Yeah, that opens up the opportunity for Johnson to move back inside the top 10, which is completing the 07 machine. But was about to say there with that, it's going to be interesting how this battle progresses for this train of cars when they reach Rachel Hunt. Trouble for Lordy. He's in the wall. The 994 machine hits the outside wall off the tunnel turn, and he's dropping like a rock.
A big mistake by Lordy there. He's going to have a ton of right side damage as well as losing a lot of track position.
We'll take a look at this one, and there was a little bit of aero damage already on that car. A lot more added with this hit. Very tight off through the tunnel.
Yeah, you saw him turn into the corner and just completely miss the bottom of the turn. It was about at least a half a car width higher than you'd want to be, maybe even a full car width.
And the thing is with that section of the track, Christian, it's kind of an interesting run, especially with Pocono, where the bottom side actually has a slightly little bit difference in banking compared to the middle line. You can see a little bit right there with where the rubber's built up. That can make it a bit difficult to line up properly if you do hit the bottom. So it's one of the trickiest parts of the whole entire circuit.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult corner, and it only gets trickier the longer the run goes on, the less grip you've got, the more critical it becomes to hit the line perfectly.
Speaking of drivers fighting for lines, Johnson making a move on Pat Harvey. All this has gone on. Haney has pulled away from this group by 5-6 car lengths, while Lordy looking slow down the straight, about a 1 to 2 mile an hour difference. The straight line speed doesn't affect the cornering though too much. Tries to send it, gives Harvey a slight touch of a squeeze as Harvey backs off. Sumner looks to battle for the position now.
We see he drove in really, really deep, Lordy did, and on the exit it's really hurt him.
Has the preferred line for the tunnel turn. Harvey, though, not backing off. Lordy very tight. Has to lift. Harvey had to lift as well to make sure he didn't touch the safer barrier. But he still carries the momentum. Sumner now tries to follow up on the top side. Trying to make that line work. But can't do so quite yet as Sumner tries to arc it up to the bottom.
And all this fighting's playing even more cars into this fight. We're seeing Zemke, Cervantes, Josh Daniels all involved in this fight now.
All the drivers trying to line up. Sumner inside for P number 10 has the faster speed. Lordy trying to battle back by sending it harder through the entry of the corner. Loses speed off the corner once again. And at this point, the thing is, Lordy can do as much as he can here to try and fight that arrow, but he's also burning up the tires the more harder he tries to send it in the corner.
Yeah, he's been driving really, really deep into the corner, and it's been working out for him a little bit in terms of defensive line, as you see there in 2, driving in very deep again, but getting very tight. Zemke's going to have a big run on him into 3.
But he's really struggling still in that tunnel turn. That's the thing that's opening up the door for everyone else to still get the positions by the time they reach turn 3, it looks like.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Lordy's struggling a lot at this point. He's getting tight even off of 3 now.
Rachel Hunt, meanwhile, was dropped to 7, but Rachel Hunt about to potentially lose 7 because Scotty Johnson is coming in quick. Scotty Johnson coming up the inside line. Hunt trying to arc it into the corner. It's been working for Hunt on entry, but again, not so much on the exit. Johnson with the faster run off the corner. Now trying to send it side by side for P number 7.
And Scotty Johnson, the driver, has been looking really, really strong in race trim. Lost a lot of track position earlier in this run when we had that big group of cars and that big moment for everybody, but been slowly working his way back through and now up into 7th place. But we've got to cut away to P2 as we got a fight between Bissau Jr. and Chatley now.
And Chatley's been having a stellar run here, not a stellar exit that time. That opens up the door for Bissau Jr. Chatley got very tight that time, and the Skidmark Motorsports machine will get a huge boost of speed around him.
And this is the part of the run where it's starting to look like the drivers who maybe went a little bit harder at the start, they're really struggling, especially with tight through both turns 1 and 2. We've seen it already with Lordy. He's probably struggling one of the worst out of everybody, but it's affecting a lot of other drivers out here as well.
This race has been quickly going by, coming to 8 laps to go. As P number 9 starts to heat up once more. Take a look at this. Sumner has been trying to play defense to stay inside the top 10 now for this lap. Zemke is trying to play the offensive match. Harvey, though, with the better run on the outside line. This could get a little bit dicey with the old tires at this point. These drivers really having a lift in the tunnel turn in these side-by-side battles.
Yeah, Zemke drove in really, really deep there and made himself vulnerable to both Cervantes and Josh Cully behind him. Lucky not to lose those positions as he's got another run on Pat Harvey down the front stretch.
And that time it looked like Zemke, as soon as he got to the yellow line, shifted down to get that extra boost of speed, but Cervantes wants to go to make it 3 wide into turn number 1. Will anyone back off? The answer is no. Cervantes forced to back off on his own gas on the apex and ends up still getting one more position in the process. That got dicey.
Yeah, we've seen Cervantes be very, very aggressive into turn 1. Actually, that time he backed off a little bit earlier. Didn't clear all the way to the bottom, but it still worked out for him as he was able to clear Pat Harvey and slot in into the top out on the exit of 1.
Zemke, though, rides a little bit higher up. To the outside goes Pat Harvey. They continue to dice around. All of this while the lead has been grown to 4 seconds. And P number 3 is getting interesting because Chatley has been reeled in by Slade, Morris, and Haney is closing in and fast as well.
This is definitely heating up at the front here. Thomas Morris, a driver who's had a really clean race so far, has moved himself up into this top 5 fight. Might have an opportunity at 3rd before the race is out.
6 laps to go this upcoming time by as you look at the intervals in this battle for second position on back here. It just looks like Chatley at this point, along with everybody else dealing with the tires. The only drivers who are faster than 57.7s at the moment are Morris and Haney, who are at the back end of this group of drivers.
Yeah, we are seeing Haney starting to move forwards as we suspected he would. Doesn't look like he's been able to get the same pace out of the car this week as he was at Charlotte.
By the way, what's going on with P number 13? Well, that sees Harvey try and end up losing some positions, it appeared, as the 67 machine ended up getting very, very close to the outside wall off the tunnel turn. That allowed Coley and Daniels to get through because Harvey ended up hitting, in fact, that tunnel turn safer barrier. Does got a little bit more damage now on the right side of the race car. See if we can take a look at what happened to Harvey here to drop him to 14th position. And similar case to Lordy, a bit more softer this time, Christian, but it still loses 2 positions in a ton of time.
Yeah, you see him coming off the corner. Doesn't look like he got into it there.
It would be in the tunnel turn specifically.
And you see he's on the outside of Josh Colley. And he's having to run a very, very high line. Colley on the bottom. Just can't quite see Harvey in the replay, but you see how slow he is on the exit.
Yeah, he ended up flipping the wall in that. Let's take a look at this from the onboard. You'll see he knows he's very high up on the track trying to lift at this point. And hello, safer barrier. Hello, crunched hook.
Yeah, and just added a little bit more to the damage that he already had. But we're seeing this with a lot of drivers just really, really struggling to get the car turned now.
P2 is getting a little bit crazy, though. Coming to 4 laps to go. Everybody's starting to play the aero game. Everyone trying to move to the bottom to the top to try and break up any sort of slipstream and play defensively here. Bichon Jr., though, with the slowest run out of all of the 5 cars. Chatley with a huge run. Elects to not take it, though, into turn number 3.
Yeah, right behind those pair, we had Josh Slade have a pretty slow exit too, and now he's really under threat from both Morris and Haney.
Inside, Haney looking to try and get by Morris. Backs off the gas. Morris, though, trying to get the run in front of Slade. They continue to go to the bottom to the top for second position. A bit like IndyCar at this point with the way some of the driving's gone. As Haney ducks it to the inside, Morris tries to make it work in the middle line. Takes away the momentum of Slade off the corner.
And whilst this is happening, we've got Scotty Johnson's joining this battle with a big run. He's going to be there as they get into 2 as well.
See Scotty Johnson making it a 4-car scrap. Mind you, this is all for 4th position. As a bit of a huge check for Slade. Haney having to cut the wheel very hard to get to the inside. Let's make it 3 wide, shall we, as Johnson wants the bottom. Haney in the middle, Slade up top. Scott Johnson backs off to allow Haney to get to the O-line.
And Slade drove very, very deep into 2 there to try and clear Haney. Just about did it, but it checked them both up on the exit. Allowed Scotty Johnson to have a look into 3. Decided to back out of it at the last moment.
Haney now having to play defense as Slade wants to get the run back to get a top 5 run. The 34 machine having one of his best performances this season. Gets a little bit of a squeeze and gets tight as Haney pulls off and away. Coming to 2 laps to go this time by. Now we'll have to see if Haney can try and get enough time to battle with Morris for P4.
Yeah, we've seen Robert Bissell Jr. drive all the way to the bottom to try and break the draft of Chatley and down to turn 2. It's spread out this group a little bit at this point, but we've got Thomas Morris. He's still looking pretty strong. He's just closing in on Chatley now.
And the caution flag has come out. Caution flag is out on the track, looking to see where it's at. This is a huge one with 2 to go, and Richard Regan Jr. had a 5+ second lead just before the caution flag. I believe it might have been Costello in 18th, not 100% sure.
Richard Regan Jr. must be dreading this at this point. This has happened 3 weeks in a row now to him, where he's been out in the front, and then there's going to be a green-white-checkered.
Almost wonder if there was a technical issue or something somewhere. He ended up disappearing from the track, unfortunately. We also had Michael Lordy spin around. It's Lortai who went around, pardon me here. The 994 machine went around to bring up the caution flag in a GWC.
And both him and Pat Harvey hit the wall off of one. Michael Lordy with a huge impact to the inside wall.
And you see, trying to ride the middle, both of them getting very tight. The arrow pushing Lordy all the way up into the fence. And nothing he can do except hold on for the ride as he hit the inside safer barrier. Wow. And now you have to wonder what Richard Regan Jr. is thinking, because a 5-second lead gone because of that incident.
Yeah, he has looked very, very strong, but it's all going to come down to the decision as to who comes down pit road for tires and who elects to stay out. I think this week it's a little bit more clear-cut than it was at Charlotte. I think we're going to see a lot of drivers come down for tires.
And remember, at Charlotte in the Cup race, and at Dover as well, in the truck race, there was a strategy call where drivers stayed out. There were drivers staying out here. Regan Jr., Bisson Jr., along with Johnson, all stayed out. Everybody else comes down to the pit lane.
I think Regan Jr. making the decision to stay out this week after pitting the previous 2 weeks and losing all his track position and never being able to get back into the winning position. Now he's taken the decision that he'd rather have them try and pass him than the other way around.
And this, remember, opens up potentially drivers risking 2. And from it looks like some have. Morris on 2, Zemke 2, Slade with 2. Most of the drivers, though, electing to take 4. And now the panic bells start to go off across the field because there's the risk of drivers pushing tight into 1 and fresh tires all the way back in P number 7 are the first drivers on 4.
And I think drivers taking 2 is actually exactly what Regan Jr. needed. Having everybody on 4 behind him was going to make it very, very difficult for him to hold them off, but he's now got a buffer of 3 cars that are out there on 2 tires. And they're not going to struggle as much as he's going to, but they're equally not going to be as fast as the guys on 4, so they're going to hold them up a little bit, give Regan Jr. a little bit of time to maybe get away at the front.
And even with the longer pace laps, we should note we should be good on the 1-hour time limit, as talked about. Currently, the drivers have about, give or take, 8 minutes or so inside the sim to get to the checker flag, so the GWC should get into its full entirety here. But at this point now, Christian, what are you thinking if you're, say, Brendan Chatley, the first driver on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles?
Well, I think you've got an excellent chance, but what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you have that bottom line through 1 and hope that everybody in front of you overestimates how much grip they have, pushes up, and then you'll have a really good, you'll maybe even clear 2 to 3 cars just like that, and then you'll have a really good run down the stretch into 2, and maybe have an opportunity to clear 1, maybe another car. And if all goes well, he might actually have an opportunity to get by Regan Jr. into even turn 3 at the end of the first lap.
Here's the concern, though, for me, for the 6 drivers on 2 tires or no tires. Those right sides and or both sides tires have taken a long run. We're talking 25 plus laps minimum on a lot of the Goodyear Eagles. There's the chance they all slide up the racetrack, and there's the chance that there's a lot of contact on the exit of turn number 1. Does that concern you as a driver?
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly why I was saying that for Chatley, his best hope is to pin it to the bottom and kind of hope that happens. But obviously, there is only one green-white-checkered in this league, so if there is contact in turn 1, which is highly likely, if I'm honest, it's possible that the yellow will come out before he even has an opportunity to use those 4 fresh tires.
Yeah, that might be the thought process for all the drivers who stayed out, absolutely. See how it all works out here at this point. But outside of that, Christian, it's been an exciting race, especially for the battles for second on back and for the battles to stay inside the top 10 before this point.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of guys coming and going inside the top 10. Seen some drivers fall really, really hard at the end of that long run, and obviously a lot of people struggle with tight. We saw Rachel Hunt start off quite promising and start dropping back, and we saw the same actually with drivers such as Pat Harvey. they're all in contention on the short run, but then they were struggling a lot on the long run, and eventually culminated in Michael Lordy running into the outside wall in turn 1 and bringing out the yellow.
Yeah, all coming, mind you, to the 2 laps to go mark to bring up the GWC to really change the complexion of this. The lights are out on top of the pace car. Here is how they'll sort things out after the pit stops and the strategy calls. Regan Jr. stays out with Besaw Jr. and Johnson. Those are P1 through 3. Then Morris, Zemke, and Slade all took 2 tires, 4th through 6th. The first driver on 4 tires is Chatley in 7th, Keith Haney in 8th, Rachel Hunt in 9th, Charles Sumner rounds out the top 10. Danny Cervantes is in 11th. Coley, Daniels, Harvey, Brown, O'Brien, and Costello are all on the lead lap. 17 drivers who have a shot here on the lead lap to try and take the checker flag here. At this point, what is your expectation on this start? They have been warned. Be careful into turn 1. Please do not make it 3 wide from race control.
Well, I think it's just really difficult. I think a driver that's in a bad position, to be honest, is Thomas Morris. He's the first driver on 2, but he's in that box with those 3 cars ahead of him that have got no tires. He doesn't really have a lot of opportunity into turn 1. He's going to be on the outside of Scotty Johnson. He's really reliant on those drivers ahead of him not to push up and for him to have a lane so that then he can carry enough momentum off of turn 1 so he has the opportunity down into turn 2 to make a move.
Have to see who can take the checkered and who makes it to that said flag. Lordy, McLaren, Williams II, Duke are your DNFs. Colquhoun did not make the start for tonight's race. All 17 drivers ready to rev their engines. Buckle up. This is going to get wild. Regan Jr. brings them to the restart box. Pace car is off. Green flag is up. 2 laps to go from Pocono.
A good start by Regan Jr. Zemke checked up Chatley, so Chatley on the 4 tires, nowhere really to go. Staying in line behind Zemke in a 1.
Hold on to your seats in the run. Watch as these drivers send it off into the corner. Very careful, a lot of the drivers. Morris trying to wheel it on the 2 tires up high. They're 3 wide off the corner. Morris nearly grabs the wall. Haney moving up to the field is side by side for P number 5.
Yeah, Haney and Chatley both with big runs on those 4 tires.
Drivers still 3 wide of the back of the grouping as Haney still continues to fight. Regan Jr. pulls away by an extra car length off the tunnel turn. If they get the white flag, the race is official. Coming towards the final lap, 2.5 miles to go at Pocono here in the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast Kings. Regan Jr. gets the white flag, 1 to go.
And he's got a really good buffer as well. Got a half-second gap back to Besaw Jr. The cars on tires are still way back. We've got Haney is the first driver on 4, but he's got 3 cars to pass before he even has an opportunity at Regan Jr.
Absolutely right now. You can see Slade getting a bit of run on Johnson. Johnson making it near 3 wide with Slade and Besaw Jr. for 2nd spot. Regan Jr. runs away as Johnson gets turned down the backstretch. He hits the inside wall. 3 wide once more as Slade has contact with Haney. Sliding around is Chatley. Haney hits the outside wall. He gets collected while Besaw Jr. holds on to 2nd. But as they go to the final corner, Richard Regan Jr., he led a majority of the night. And he'll bring his Ford Mustang to victory lane. Richard Regan Jr. wins his 3rd race in the PRL Cup Series season.
The 2 races where it really didn't work out for him with late yellows, he comes away with the win finally.
2nd place goes to Besaw Jr., 3rd Slade, Sumner, and Morris take the top 5. And some drivers got involved with incidents you see in the backdrop coming to the checker flag. Chatley drops all the way to 8th on the run to the final corner. Man, that was an interesting way to end off this race.
Yeah, some really unfortunate incidents for some drivers with strong races. We saw Scotty Johnson look like he was in the middle of a 3 wide and just got together with the car on the bottom. Fortunately, his strong race ends in a P16.
An interesting way to finish things off here for win number 3 of the season. And it's just been that type of a season for Richard. He's looked strong from the get-go. Now, we'll get to celebrate. Let's take a look at some of the incidents if we can right now, because the first one to look at is Haney. That's where things really start to spark up around that 87 machine. Because once that happened, in other words, the tunnel turn after Johnson got turned, it got really crazy. Christian, talk us through some of this, as a lot had to be unpackaged here on this last lap.
Yeah, and it all really started with Bisso Jr. getting tight coming off of turn 1. He checked everybody up behind. You see Scotty Johnson in the middle there, kind of drifting down, and just unfortunately turns himself across the nose. But I think Josh Slade, who's then on the inside of Haney, then gets turned by Slade, who looks like he just couldn't keep it on the bottom in turn 2.
And that collected a few drivers, including Haney, who got scored behind Johnson, not able to make it to the finish. You can see that side by side. Chatley had to have a major save, mind you, to keep himself away from the same fate as the 86.
Yeah, and it looked like Haney nearly had it saved, but just another car came along and clipped the nose of him, turned it back up to the wall. So unfortunate for him after another strong race to finish P17.
Richard Regan Jr. burns it down at Pocono. He comes away with a victory at the Tricky Triangle, and he'll have a lot to celebrate about. At post-race coverage in just a few moments, you're watching the Global SimRacing Channel live from the virtual Pocono Raceway. This is the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast King. back, everyone, to Pocono Raceway for post-race coverage of the PRL Cup Series, sponsored by Diecast King. It was a thrower tonight from Pocono Raceway, and it sure was an interesting finish under the GWC. Richard Regan Jr. comes home with a victory. He had led by as much as 5 seconds on the longest stint of the race before staying out on old tires and taking the checker flag. Robert Bisson Jr. comes home in second with Josh Slade holding on to third position. Charles Sumner comes home with a fourth place run, and Thomas Morris on 2 tires rounds out the top 5. Adam Zemke came home in sixth. Josh Coley recovers from an early incident to a P7 run. But Brendan Chatley had the save of the race. Sideways on the last lap in the tunnel turn, still rescues the car into P8 for Rescue Racing. Jeff Costello comes home at 9th, and Chad Brown quietly has a top 10 run. Christian.
Moving on to the drivers outside the top 10, we had Pat Harvey after a real up and down race, comes home in 11th. Rachel Hunt, another driver who had some issues, ended up dropping from that third position start to a 12th at the end. And we had Danny Cervantes with some really big moves on the inside into turn 1, but unfortunately only comes home 13th. James O'Brien, another driver we saw strong at the start of the race, unfortunately had an incident and came home in 14th. We had Josh Daniels on 15th. Scotty Johnson with that big incident on the last lap comes home 16th, as well as Keith Haney, first driver a lap down in 17th. Then we had Michael Lordy in 18th, Dan McLaren 19th, and Paul Williams the second in 20th, with James Duke 21st and Horatio Calquin, who did not take the start, in 22nd.
That's a look top to bottom of your finishing order for tonight's round here at Pocono. Our race winner, Richard Regan Jr., stands by here in the broadcast booth in Victory Lane. Richard, probably not the way you expected it to finish under the GWC, but you still come home with the W tonight. How does it feel?
Oh, it feels good, especially since I let one slip away at Bristol. When I learned my lesson though, not to pit on a green-white-checkered no more, because as long as you make it through the first couple corners and you hold your track position, you can make it. I was a little nervous though with I think we had like 18 lap old tires there, but we came out on top, which is pretty good.
Indeed. You looked like the strongest car for much of the race. You went and had a 5+ second advantage as this race progressed. How difficult was it to try and make sure you can grow that gap, while also making sure you didn't burn up the tires too much, as well as trying to break that toe away from the other competitor?
Well, you remember, Christian, what did I tell you last week? I told you I need to go home, do my homework, and save my right front tire. And that's exactly what I did. And, I just wanted to take it easy the first 10 laps. Once I saw that everyone else was really starting to get tight, I'd get it on it a little bit harder. And then once they got out of my draft, they just couldn't keep up with me. It's really tough to save the tire. You really think that you're driving too easy when you're trying to save the tire, but it pays off really good after like 10 laps. And Keith Haney beat me on that long run last week at Charlotte because he was able to save the tire, and I went out there, and that was my goal for the week, to learn how to save the tire, and I think I did a good job of that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, man. It looked really good to see, and there's a couple of times where it looked like you were a little bit under threat, but yeah, the tire management definitely a big step forward and came away with a win.
Yeah, man. Awesome. I would have liked to see the race finish on the green there. I didn't need the extra stress of the green-white-checkered, but it worked out for us.
Indeed it did, and your third victory of the season out of 6 total rounds makes you the championship favorite into the closing stages of season number 1 of the 2020 calendar year. At this point, what's your focus to try and make sure you come home with the championship?
Oh, with only a few races left to go, it's really about point racing now. Getting wins and stuff will be ideal, but you don't want to do something to take you out of the race early or give you damage that's going to really hinder where you finish. So, moving forward, that's what it's going to be. It's just point racing and keeping that cushion to become a champion for season 1, and we'll be back at it for 2, 3, and 4, and hopefully win the overall championship as well. Next
race at Phoenix Raceway. Your thoughts on that racetrack?
It's going to be difficult because it's a short track package. So passing is going to be tough. We just got to put in our work, get a lot of practice in, and hopefully we'll have a good showing over there.
Is there anyone you want to thank for being a part of your victory tonight?
Yeah, but before that, I want to give a shout out to James O'Brien because he should be up here. He's had a lot of bad luck these past few races, and he doesn't deserve the luck that he's getting. Hopefully his luck can turn around because he's definitely a contender. Hopefully he can get it going. But yeah, I'd like to thank all you guys at GSRC for broadcasting. My mom, my stepmom, my dad, and my aunt for watching. Neonism. If you need a paint scheme, hit up Jesse Abraham on Facebook or type in Neonism with a Z on Facebook, and you'll go to his page. He does awesome work. He designed the car. Underground Racing, Craftsman, Susan G. Coleman, and Multiple Sclerosis Society.
Thank you very much for the time, Richard. Congratulations on the victory.
Thank you, guys.
That was Richard Regan Jr. coming home with his third W of the campaign. Charles Sumner stands by with Christian.
Charles, pretty good run for you tonight. Started 12th, but came home 4th. Must be happy with that.
Hey, thanks for having me, Christian. Yeah, pretty happy. Anytime you can go +4 on the last lap and survive Carnage, that's a good night. Wasn't happy about the 12th qualifying. I just botched coming out of turn 3, and it messed up both laps. So I felt I had a pretty racy car. Fortunately, had that incident with Dan in the tunnel turn. And after that, it didn't look like it on the replay, but my right front was crumbled in. So I was happy to just walk out with a top 10 tonight with that right front damage. But hey, to get to top 5, I'll take it.
Yeah, it looked like you were in and around a lot of battles tonight, and you want to talk us through a little bit of the race, and it looked like it was really hard to go 2x2 through the corners, and looked like that was allowing a lot of big runs to happen as well.
It really was. If you did not have a car directly in front of you on a straightaway, it didn't matter how great of an entry or middle corner you got, your run just died. And I don't know. I know I normally don't engage in that many battles like that. I just was really comfortable with the car tonight. And also, too, the guy on the high side, if you're trying to give room, and if you don't enter in just right, it just plowed. It was bad, and yeah, it just kept us at a big gaggle for a large chunk of it.
Well, that brings me to my next question. We saw a lot of drivers out there struggling with the tight car, and actually, as the run went on, it looked like some people were really, really struggling, especially off of 1 and 2 with how tight the car was. Now, did you kind of have to do a lot in terms of saving the right front to not fall into that trap?
I found it was 2 parts. Saving the right front, which unfortunately doing a lot of battles really didn't help that. But pre-race, I really dropped the brake bias. And even in car, I reduced it even more just to kind of help fight that entry mid, get that car to rotate better. And I think that's kind of maybe what helped me a little bit more on that longer run.
Yeah, I think brake bias is definitely a underappreciated adjustment in the fixed series, but it can definitely go a long way to helping a car that's especially tight, like you say. And yeah, it's a good call to make that change. Now, I believe the next round is Daytona. You got any thoughts going into that one?
I hate restrictor plate racing, especially coming from the admin side of things. I know a lot of guys like it. It does, put on a good show. I've been on the good and bad end of it. It is what it is. In the past, me and the other What I Bet guys have kind of hung in the back and then tried to race our way forwards, and we seem to just, trouble find you. So I think I'm going to put everything I can into qualifying, see if I can stay in front of trouble and kind of reverse the luck that I've been having at restrictor plate tracks.
Yeah, it's definitely always a little bit of a lottery with those tracks, but like you say, you just have to kind of stay out of trouble as much as you can, but sometimes trouble just comes and finds you. That said, you go into that race off a 4th place finish, so definitely good luck for that, and thank you for coming and chatting with us. And before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to? Absolutely.
First and foremost, thanks to you guys at GSRC. Every week you put on an amazing broadcast for all of our leagues. It's very, very much appreciated. Special shout out tonight, Brendan Chatley, my organizer in the league. My audio cut out, so I could not admin anything. He took the reins. He did a great job tonight, so shout out to him. Also, to our title sponsor, Diecast Kings. Very, very cool guys. Check out their Facebook page. A lot of auctions and deals that they have going on for anybody in the collection business. And lastly, first time I get to do this on a broadcast, special thanks to Tropicana, company I've worked for, company that's been in my family for 35 years. Finally get to give them a shout out.
Well, thank you, Charles. And again, congrats on the 4th place finish and good luck for next week.
Thank you, guys.
That was Charles Sumner coming home 4th tonight. He started in 12th position. A stellar run for the Tropicana machine this evening. Christian, your final thoughts, because it finished not in the way I think Richard Regan Jr. expected to go, but he still comes home with his season-leading 3rd victory on the campaign.
Well, I think after 2 races where he was pretty dominant, And obviously Charlotte, he didn't look like he was going to win regardless of the yellow, but still lost a decent number of positions because of his decision to pit. Obviously the Bristol race when he was well in command and made that decision to pit as well. Obviously coming to a third attempt at that kind of similar scenario, chose the opposite strategy this time, stayed out, managed to pick up the win. I think it was well deserved. I think he was clearly the dominant car all day, and I think going into Daytona it'll be difficult to kind of keep that going. Obviously there's a lot more in play there, there's the draft and everything, but he's definitely still the guy to beat in this series.
And the next round you will see on GSRC is at Daytona International Speedway. Yes, it's time to go super speedway racing. That round sponsored by Splash and Go Graphics. That should be an interesting one for the third to last race of the season, Christian.
Yeah, I think it's always, as was mentioned by Charles, a little bit of a lottery with the plate tracks, but it can bring about some really good racing. And obviously with this current package, we're seeing some really good scenarios where you can have 3 wide and some really big runs in that third lane, and I think it makes it quite a spectacle. It's really good to watch, and I think it'll be a great race for us to cover.
I think so as well, but we'd like to thank you, the fans, for tuning in to tonight's exciting action from Pocono Raceway. We'd also like to thank Diecast Kings and the Precision Racing League for this strong series and this strong event we see tonight. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. Those can be seen listed up on your screen now, but additional thanks going to Jude Lalonde, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today as well, and Christian and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.store@ui.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Gram. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button, as well as the notification bell, so you don't miss a moment here on the Global SimRacing Channel. The next time you can see the PRL Cup Series sponsored by Diecast Kings will be when the series heads to Daytona for round number 8 of the season, sponsored by Splash and Go Graphics. Be sure to tune in on Sunday, February the 16th. The podcast starts at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have upcoming races for other series listed up on your screen. Check those out as well and mark them down your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.